Hi, it's your homegirl, Abby Cornelius. And on today's Homegirl podcast, we are talking about celebrating wins. And if I were to ask you the question, what today do you want to celebrate? What comes to mind? Was the first thing that happened is that you thought of something negative, or you said, I can't even think of something positive? If that's the case, you're not alone. Most of us are hardwired to focus on the negative. It's a survival technique, but it really isn't a good survival technique because the science teaches us otherwise. So I just pulled up some stats from the Mayo Clinic, and this is research based on the health benefits of positive thinking, which is that ability to focus on the win versus the negative. And here are some health benefits: increased lifespan, lower rate of depression, lower levels of distress and pain, greater resistance to illness, better psychological and physical well-being, better cardiovascular health, and reduced risk of death from cardiovascular disease and stroke, reduced risk of death from cancer, reduced risk of death from respiratory conditions, reduced risk of death from infections, better coping skills during hardship and times of stress. So my question to you is, do you feel stressed? Do you feel like you're not highly adaptable when things go off course? Are you quick to rapid fire and to go to the negative and to kind of like lose your shit? Are you concerned about your health? Are you possibly depressed? Do you not feel like you're showing up as your best self? Well, one of the things that may be contributing to all of these problems is your thought process. And what I realized was that I like to think of myself as a very positive and optimistic person, but when it came to work, I was often stressed. I was often overwhelmed. I often felt like hustle mentality. I often felt like, what have you done for me lately? And I never really allowed myself to stop and pause. And for those of you that are in the new home world and listening, I'm sure you can relate because we are on this 30-day cycle, or it's the end of a quarter, or it's the end of the year. And it just like never ends. There's never that time to pause and just say, wow, that was really great. And unfortunately, leaders in the industry aren't wonderful at celebrating wins because they're also got that pressure to move on to the next thing. So you kind of have stressed out people leading stressed out people. And one of the things I did early in my career as a sales leader was I implemented the win of the week. And for me, the win of the week was something I asked of my team in their Sunday night updates. So of course, this is good in person, right? If you have a sales meeting or a sales rally, it's really good to celebrate wins. I think Jeff Shore kind of coined the term like doing a victory lap at the end of your meeting and end on a high note, which I love that. But the win of the week for me was more that every week forcing my salespeople to think of something good that happened personally or professionally, sharing it with me so that we're creating some sort of, information share beyond the typical employee boss situation of, here's my problems, boss lady, can you help me fix it? Because I found early in my career, I was a little bit worn down because I was the facilitator. I was the middle ground where everybody down would bring me their problems that they needed help getting assistance from above on, and everybody from the top would kind of weigh down on me with the initiatives that they needed rolled out to the field. And I was getting essentially the negative from the top and the negative from the bottom, and nobody was celebrating my wins with me as a mid-level manager, and I wasn't celebrating the wins of my people because I was too busy rolling things out, or I was too busy addressing my employees, needs. So I felt very sandwiched and very stressed. But when I started to implement this win of the week in my weekly email updates and in my weekly one-on-ones, something started to change. And what started to change was I started learning about my people more. I started learning what they saw as wins, which is always very important. I was able to offer encouragement and support based on that information that they were sharing. And we created a better connection and we created a better vibe. And they, through this exercise of every week asking, what's your win? What's your win? They started to bring me wins instead of just bringing me problems all the time. Okay. So that was really a beneficial dynamic. One of the things I was still missing, so this created a good, leadership, tactic for me to have these celebrate wins. And I want to real quick before I move on, talk about some of the great things that I hear in these wins. Sometimes it's personal. Sometimes it's, we just booked this vacation, or my, child graduated high school and we had this really great party, or I hit my goal weight, or we finally paid off, that really big debt that was hanging over our head. So I get some of those great personal wins. And then if we're doing it in a one-on-one, obviously I can high five, I can tell them congratulations. If it's in an email, you need to be really mindful to write back and respond, right? Because my update emails, I don't know if you guys use these in your organizations, it had a bunch of different things in it, but I always wanted to start with a win. And so when their email also includes everything else, when I'd write back, I'd like to say like, congrats, that's awesome, or can't wait to hear about your trip, or something to acknowledge that I read it, that I got their win, and that, I'm celebrating with them, right? It's not just put your win into the void. Like, we're going to actually acknowledge and celebrate it. But what I found was I was creating this great dynamic with my team members, but nobody was creating that dynamic for me. There was nobody saying, hey, Abby, tell me something good. And I wasn't doing a good job of sharing wins with my leaders. So if you're in a situation where you're a middle manager and maybe nobody is celebrating wins with you, it is okay to celebrate your own damn wins. It is okay for you to send an email to your boss that says, hey, this just happened. My teammate did this after our coaching session, or, I just met somebody in a new department and we formed a really great connection and I'm looking forward to where this is heading. Don't be afraid to share your own wins, or at a minimum, maybe find a peer and ask, can we be celebration buddies? Can we once a week touch base and just talk about something good? Because you all probably know your person you call when the shit hits the fan. When you want to bitch, you know who to call. But do you know who to call when you want to celebrate? Or do you gut check and you're like, oh, I don't want to brag, or I don't want to make them uncomfortable because maybe they're going through a hard time. Like, what are you doing when the good news happens? How are you sharing it and how are you celebrating it? Or are you just like, whatever, brush it under the rug and move on? And I want to encourage you to slow down, pause, and celebrate. So in an effort of kind of teaching you, like I like to say, if you're a teacher, you need to tell, show, do, review. So I told you what this could look like, and now I'm going to show you. So every week I have this really great planner. It's called a Full Focus Planner. For those of you that are watching on YouTube, I'll hold it up to the camera. So Full Focus Planner. And basically what it does is it asks you to set like your big 3 for the week, but every day at the end, it has a daily win section. And so if you're using a planner, that can be a great prompt to say what your daily win is. Maybe it's just something you do in the morning when you're getting ready. You just try to think of something good. But also, like, there are times when it's a little bit more than just like, I'm grateful for this cup of coffee, or like, today I'm just so grateful it feels like spring outside and the birds are chirping. Like, that's a win for me today. It felt good. I got out and I walked. But there's other wins, like there's professional wins too. And when I would get those in my inbox, that was so inspiring to see progress. So one of the things that you don't realize in our industry, we don't really talk about a lot, is that everybody's fairly autonomous, which is great. You need to hire the right people so that you can trust that they're out there doing the right thing. The problem with autonomy in the workplace is that your employer doesn't often see the good things that you're doing every day because they're not sitting there. You're not in shared cubicle floors. So it's even more important for you to share the good things that you're doing. So by me every week giving my employees an opportunity to brag about themselves, to share something good, I'm learning their good habits. I would get emails that would say things like, you know what? I fell out of routine with my realtor outreach, and this week I hopped back on it and I actually got 2 really good leads, and I think one of them is going to write on Tuesday. So I get to hear what they're doing that they want to brag about, what they're working hard on. Somebody else might say, hey, 3rd week staying strong on my follow-up calls, and I can finally feel the reward of it, right? I got 2 sales lined up. It's so nice being the 1st week of the month and knowing I have 2 sales lined up. Thanks for encouraging me to stick to my follow-up. And so those wins become a platform for them to celebrate their hard work and for you to celebrate it with them and for them. So leaders, don't discredit this tell me something good. So let's talk about what I do as a coach. So from a coaching standpoint, I start every single one of my sessions. I set the stage with this every time I have a new coaching client. The first thing we're going to start with is a win. I want to hear something good. And the reason I want to do that is because as a coach, I am here to help you solve problems, but I need you and I need me to see progress. And if we're only focused on problem resolution, we're not taking a pause to celebrate that win and to celebrate that success. So one of the reasons why a lot of people come to me for coaching is because they feel like they're in a very negative work environment. Maybe they feel like they aren't getting a lot of support from their leaders, or they're understaffed in that department. I see a lot of sales managers that don't have VPs anymore. So now they're reporting directly to the division president, and that creates a lack of support at that level. Maybe they lack engagement. They feel like maybe their team members aren't highly engaged with them, or they're not highly engaged with their organization, and they're trying to reconnect. They want to enjoy their work again. And that's the other one, is that they're not having fun. Like they lost their spark for work. And I think almost all of these: negativity, no support, lack of engagement, not having fun, losing your spark, all of that can be attributed to just focusing on the negative all the time. This industry is dynamic. It is a roller coaster. But if you're only going from loss to loss, and if you're only tallying the losses and you're not also tallying the wins, you will become discouraged. You will become negative. You will feel like you're in an island. Whereas this conscious effort of celebrating wins and asking people, tell me something good, what's going on that's good, and even just being that person in the office that goes around and asks people, like, tell me what's going on, what's good, what good happened this week, you can start igniting energy and excitement. And I'm not trying to say, put your hands over your ears, cover your eyes, and ignore things that are going wrong. I don't think that's a solution either. I just want you to shine a brighter spotlight on the things that are going right. And here's what happens. When you focus on celebrating a win, you get a dopamine release. Now, I'm sure you're like, okay, we don't need dopamine necessarily, because isn't that what keeps people addicted to social media and stuff? And it is, but it is a good, release when it comes to professional development. So dopamine releases are very important when it comes to the learning curve. So if you want to get somebody, and this is something we talk about a lot as trainers, if you want to get a new hire up and running quickly, the best thing you can do is get them wins, stack wins, and celebrate those wins, because as the dopamine gets released, it reinforces the good behavior and it causes them to redo it again, makes them feel good. They want that reward again. They're going to repeat the behavior. So those celebrating wins are really important to somebody that's in the learning curve. It's also really good for employee engagement, because when I make you feel good as a leader and I celebrate your win, you get that dopamine thing, and it creates a biological connection, and it makes you want to repeat the behavior and to get that again. It also, as a leader, it feels really good to hear good news from your team. We don't only want to hear the bad news and the troubles that you have. We want to hear what's working and what's going well, because that gives us reassurance that we're on the right track in leading you as well. So many benefits of celebrating wins, but you need to create a culture of celebrating wins. So you need to determine what's achievable for you. Is it a weekly update? That's fairly simple, but then you need to take the time to respond and to read them and to acknowledge it. Or when you go back out in the field, bring them something to celebrate it, or, share it with the team if it feels like a big win that was like worth sharing. So you need to actually do something after they share their win if you're just doing it in an email. If you're doing it at a sales rally, that's a great time for them to get peer support and peer connection. And you're going to learn a lot about one another through these wins, because you're going to learn what's important to them and what do they value in terms of celebrating. And then for you, if you're an individual who's on a team, or you're a leader and maybe you don't feel like you have that cheerleader of a boss, and you need somebody to celebrate wins with you on the regular to help you in your own learning and development and your own growth, find a coach, maybe me, that will help celebrate those wins with you, and not only provide you guidance on solving problems, but to celebrate. That's the fun part of life, is that we're all going through this crazy journey, and it's exciting to see progress and improvement. So I'm going to wrap it up because I'm getting a little long-winded, but a couple things. One, if you're listening to this, okay, and I know how many people listen to my podcast. I don't know who, but I can see how many. I want a text per listen. So my phone number is 704-960-5128. I will put it in the show notes. I know this is crazy. I'm putting out my personal cell phone number, but I want you to text me right now. If I don't know you, tell me your name, who you are, where you're from, but tell me a win. If I do know you, you better damn well text me a win. Tell me something good. Let me celebrate with you. I want you to feel how good it is to share good news with somebody and to get an appropriate response. So text me. If you're a leader, try this with your team. Maybe just at your next one-on-one, instead of starting it off, getting into the, hey, how can I help? Which is a great question as a leader. Before the how can I help? Or where are your sales, or whatever your question is, which probably don't lead with where are your sales. Start with, tell me something good. What's working? And if they are sitting there defeated and they can't think of anything, force it. Quiet. Let them figure it out. Think about it, because there's always something good. And often when they are having a harder time finding it is when they need your support more to find the good in the situation. So leaders, be celebrators of wins, create a culture of celebrating wins. And it doesn't have to be false and over the top. It doesn't need to be balloons every time somebody makes a phone call, but it does need to be that, wow, that's really exciting. I'm so happy for you that you're making progress on your goals, or that you're having this good, thing going on personally. So create that culture. And if you feel like maybe you need some extra support and you're one of those folks who was like me and you're a middle manager and you are just struggling, or you're a sales professional that maybe doesn't have a strong leadership team in place and you need somebody to help guide you through problem resolution, you need somebody to offer you some encouragement, you want somebody to help take you from where you are to where you want to go, please reach out. Again, in my show notes, I will include my 30-minute free call link. You just click on it, you pick a time that works for you. We hop on a Zoom, we chat about your goals. And if you want coaching, I can talk to you about what that looks like and see if working together makes sense. But either way, if you just need somebody to chat with, take advantage of the 30-minute call. I would love to meet you. But at a minimum, text me. I want to hear some wins. So again, I'm Abby on Coaching Island out here in my house on Zoom or YouTube or wherever you're listening to me. But I want to hear from you. So tell me something good. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you next week. I believe next week we have a special guest, as long as I can get it recorded and edited on time. So tune in so we can start our Her Story series with a highlighted homegirl. All right.